Hey friends and book lovers, welcome to another of my weekly reads updates. So I didn't feel like I read a lot in April. I only read like 5 or 6 books, and I want to read more than that per month. Like I want to read at least like 8 books a month. And so I'm hoping that doing these weekly reads will motivate me to read more and hold myself more accountable so y'all will know what I'm reading. So without further ado, let's get to my most recent read that wasn't in my April wrap-up that I just finished and that I really enjoyed, and that would be The Final Empire by Brandon Sanderson. This is my second Brandon Sanderson novel, and honestly, I think out of the two, it's my favorite. The first Brandon Sanderson novel that I read was Warbreaker, and that was a really solid novel. Gave it 5 stars. I thought it was a really great standalone story. It was really interesting magic, really interesting intrigue and politics, characters, and I really loved the way that it ended. I felt like that was really satisfying, and he really made it until the end, until he revealed Warbreaker. So that was really cool. But this story is, oh my gosh, it's chef's kiss. Like, it was so good. Beautifully self-contained, really well done, lots of twists and turns, lots of little Easter eggs that I didn't catch because it was my first time reading it, but I think after a reread, it would be so interesting. I also really love the headers here in italics, which are like a journal excerpt from a character in the book, and you get a little tidbit each chapter. I had my guesses throughout the whole novel, and oh man, I mean, you think you know what's gonna happen, and I was like, oh, I got this. I've read so much fantasy, of course I can kind of tell by now. And honestly, I couldn't tell. I was wrong, and it was so great to be wrong and to be surprised and to really enjoy the world. I enjoyed everything about this. I enjoyed pretty much all of the characters. I enjoyed the villain in the book. I enjoyed how he created his world, I guess, around him to protect him, and I also really enjoyed like the theories and the politics and the underlying themes on how to create a good world. So I really freaking enjoyed this. 5 stars through and through. I'm excited to get to Well of Ascension. I've heard mixed reviews about the second one because it is slower and it is more about one of the characters in the book, which, had I not known that that character was in the next books, I would have totally thought that that character was gonna die in this book, but he didn't die, so that was also a surprise to me. Characters that I thought were gonna for sure not survive these things, they were way too soft and like fluffy for that, but nope, they survived, at least some of them. And that is the next book for that character, and I guess it is a little slower for Well of Ascension, but I will be reading that later in the month of May. I'm excited. I like political intrigue. I like character work, so I'm hoping that this slowness won't affect me too much and won't affect my preferences too much. And honestly, this was a great book, and I can't wait to one day reread it. I think it was fantastic, and if you're a fantasy lover and you haven't read this book, I do highly recommend it, and not because it's Brando Sando, but just because the story itself is just really great. So I love that for me. So I'm gonna move on to the books that I'm currently reading. The first one that I'm furthest into is The City of Brass by S.A. Chakraborty. This is without the dust jacket because I was too lazy to put it back on before this video, so that's okay. Y'all know what it looks like already. I put it in my May TBR. So if y'all don't know what it looks like, you can go ahead and check out my May TBR video, which I will link up above, so y'all can go check it out if you want to see it. So City of Brass, I am like 30-something% of the way through and really enjoying it. I think the first 2 or 3 chapters, I was like, yeah, I'm gonna probably really enjoy this book. I love the lore. I love the mythology around it, the jinns and the wishes and the magic and the desert. All that setting is beautiful. It is set in Cairo, and it is a lot of Egyptian mythology, and then it kind of spans into other regions, which I think are reimagined as like the Daevabad, which is where this is going to be mostly based, which is like a fictional place and area. So there's a map in here that explains all that, but it is really interesting. I'm really in love with our main character Nari, and I'm really in love with Dara, and I really love their dynamic and their just back and forth and their sassiness, especially Nari as a character. I really love her sassiness and her just kind of like will and determination, but obviously she's a flawed character, and I'm really enjoying maybe seeing some growth and seeing some like self-esteem come into her, which I freaking love that. I don't know right now if this is gonna be like a 4 or 5 star. I'm predicting at least 4 stars because I think it's gonna be more than just okay, but I am really excited to continue. I think this is gonna be a bomb.com, and oh my gosh, it's gonna be so amazing. If you guys have read this, let me know. I know that it's a favorite among a couple of my friends, and they were the ones that made me read it basically. And then Books with V's Discord is doing a read along for this series, and I think we're gonna do a live stream for it or a live show for it later this month or next month or something. So I'm excited to finish it and be able to talk about it with y'all. But yeah, let me know if you have any comments below on the City of Brass. The next one that I'm currently reading is The 100,000 Kingdoms. I am literally like 3 or 4 pages into this, or maybe just the first chapter. I was supposed to buddy read this with Evie, and I will link her channel down below, but she just went right through this book. She read it so fast and left me in the dust, which is completely fine because it's N.K. Jemisin and we both love the author. So this is her, I think, debut novel, and it is a part of a trilogy. So I know that it's not going to be as strong as the 5th season trilogy, which I freaking love, but I still want to read all of N.K. Jemisin's work. And that is just a personal goal of mine, is to read all her works. So I'm hoping to get through this quickly. It isn't super long, but I think the beginning is a little tough because it is a little info dumpy, and not in a way that I expected, and not in a way that she does her 5th season trilogy. So again, her debut novel, there's gonna be some work on it, but I think I'm gonna really enjoy it. And I'm excited to dive into the story and really get a good sense of what it's about. Because if you know N.K. Jemisin, her synopses are always a little vague and they don't leave you knowing much. So we'll see, but either way, she's a really compelling writer. Love her style, and her stories are usually just really incredible. So very excited to dive into this trilogy finally. The next book is kind of like a current read, but more like a next read, because I have read the prologue for Winds of Strife, but I haven't actually dove into the first chapter of the book yet. What I can tell you is the prologue is quite compelling, and I'm very intrigued and interested in this book as a whole. This is a self-published book by Yuri Gutman, or UG Gutman. He, I know, participates in a bunch of Discords that I'm part of, which is kind of how I discovered his book. And for the shelf published in Discord, this was the book pick for April, which I obviously didn't get to finish, so I'm hoping to finish it at some point in May. So this is going to be next on the docket when I finish one of these 2 books, and I might even pick it up when I'm still in the middle of the first 2 books that I talked about that I'm currently reading. So more to come on this one because I don't know too much about it, but it is pretty dark, and we'll see where it leaves off, and I'm really excited to check it out. The next book I want to talk about is an arc that I recently got approved for, and I feel like a lot of us got recently approved for this book. It comes out in June, and it is one of my anticipated releases for the summer, and that is the Jasmine Throne by Tasha Suri. Tasha Suri is an author that I really want to get into. She has a fantasy duology that I have the first book of, and I think that one's a fantasy romance duology. The Jasmine Throne, however, I don't think is classified under fantasy romance, but it is a fantasy novel. It is adult fantasy, and it is the first in a trilogy, which is, I think, set in India or in an Indian inspired setting, and it follows a maid and a princess that both have forbidden magic in this world, which sounds amazing. And if you guys can see the cover, it is beautiful. The cover is so freaking beautiful, and these things always pull me in, and it was on my anticipated reads for 2021 in general, but also it's just on my anticipated summer reads as well. That video will be coming out super soon, so hopefully y'all will see it. But I'm really excited to have an e-arc of this from NetGalley so that I can review it and check it out before its release date, which is always incredible, and I'm so incredibly grateful for that one. If you guys have read this, if you received an early arc of it and you enjoyed it or didn't enjoy it, let me know in the comments down below. I'm really interested to hear what other opinions there are around this novel. I've just heard generally really great things about the author, so I am really hoping that it's at least a 4 or 5 stars, and that is my expectation for this book. And the last book that's going to be on the docket for the next reads in the next week or so is gonna be The Bitter Twins by Jen Williams. Now, I read The Ninth Reign last month. I did a review on it, and I will link that up here below. I loved it. I think I ended up giving it a 5 stars, which is really rare for a first in a trilogy. I usually don't give the first in any series or trilogies a 5 stars because generally it's a little slow, and there's a lot of things to learn about the world. There's a lot of characters to get to know, and that's not always my favorite part. of a novel. I love it a lot, but it can feel slow at the beginning. So The Ninth Rain was amazing. Please check out my spoiler-free review if y'all are thinking of reading it, because I think you should if you like adult fantasy, and if you like N.K. Jemisin, and if you like atmospheric, compelling, subtle plots, but not something super in your face. I think you're gonna like Jen Williams' writing. I can't wait to get into the Bitter Twins, because the way Ninth Rain left us was treacherous. I'm so happy that this entire trilogy is released and that I don't have to wait for anything to come out, because I don't think that I would be able to. We are buddy reading this, a small group of us that read Ninth Rain on the Shelf Space Discord. We're gonna buddy read it in another group, private group, and talk about it hopefully. But I'm pretty sure I'm gonna be picking up the Bitter Twins and Poison Song right after, which is the third one, because I don't think I'll be able to wait. The way that the first one ended, I can almost be certain that the way this is gonna end is gonna destroy me, and I'm gonna need to read the third one right away. So here we are. We are reading this trilogy and I can't wait. I can't wait. It is gonna be so good. I really enjoy her writing. This one's a chunker. It's even thicker than the Ninth Rain. I think the Ninth Rain was like 500 pages. This one's like 100 pages more. So I'm grateful for the extra pages, but I'm also scared because the synopsis is crazy and I can't say anything because it will spoil y'all who have not read the Ninth Rain. So please read it so that we can talk about it, because there is much to discuss. Joanna and I also did a Ninth Rain live show, which I can link down below or up here if you guys want to check that out, where we discuss the spoiler-free thoughts for the first like 20 minutes or so, and then we go on to a spoiler-filled discussion for the last 40 minutes or so. So please check that out if you're interested in our thoughts about the Ninth Rain. And of course, I totally lied to y'all. That was not the last book. The actual last book that's on the docket for next week, which is A Touch of Darkness by Scarlett St. Clair, and this is a fantasy romance Hades Persephone retelling. And if you don't know me, if you're new here, I adore a good Hades and Persephone retelling. I loved Akamath and I loved Lore Olympus, and I love any kind of Hades Persephone-esque retelling, even if it's not super obvious. So this one's gonna be right up my alley, and that is all I want to know about it. That's all I need to know about it for me to want to read it. So I'm really excited. We're reading that over on another Discord that I don't know if I can announce, but it is going to be called the Atlantis Discord, and we will be buddy reading a lot of fantasy romance and a lot of fantasy in general. So if that's set up accordingly, I will link it down below so y'all can join us. But if it's not set up, then you're welcome to still read it and buddy read it with me, and I will send you the invite link to that Discord if you so want to be a part of it. I am running it with my friend Kristen. She has an Instagram, a Bookstagram, and I will link that down below in case y'all want to go follow her. She reads even more than I do. I mean, she goes through books like it's nobody's business. She's amazing, and I love her recommendations because she does read quite a bit. So if you like this video, please go ahead and click the like button. That does help me out a lot. And if you enjoyed this content and you want to see more from me, please do not hesitate to click on that subscribe button below.